Hello, everybody. It is Sunday night. It is Super Something Sunday, from what I understand. I think there may be a football game happening right about now. And so I'm kind of curious to see how many people are going to jump on. Hi, Pete. It's good to have you here. Yeah, I'm a little curious on this Super Bowl Sunday, how many people are going to jump on. Barbara, hi. Tony, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, it's it's been an exciting week here in Michigan. We went from being like 13 below zero to 50 degrees today in the course of like 4 days. So we've had quite the weather roller coaster going. I know some of you are from Michigan. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Stacy, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for jumping on. Before I get started on today's topic, which is about change and how it can ambush us sometimes and shine a light on some of the things that we've been making excuses about. Julie, hi, I'm glad you're here. Before I start talking about that, I just wanted to find out if any of you followed up on some of the stuff we talked about last week, which was to encourage people and to commit to encourage somebody in our sphere and do it specifically, publicly, sincerely, personally. If you did, I would love you to drop that in the comments. And even if you don't name the person that you reached out to, it would be really great if you said what the result was. How did you feel after? And what was their response? That, to me, hearing the real deal, what impact it actually has on people is the thing that's I find most gratifying. So if you want to drop that in there, it'll encourage us all to do a little bit more encouraging. So that's awesome. And I want you to know that I encouraged quite a few people. I sent some cards, I made some calls, and the encouragement that I passed out to people, I was a little bit taken aback at how genuinely pleased they were to receive it. And it was gratifying to me. So if you haven't encouraged anybody yet, feel free to check out last week's Sunday Night Live, and you'll get some tips on how to do that in a way that just magnifies the impact of the good. And you're going to find out that it's a pretty magnificent thing. And I hope for those of you who needed a little bit of encouragement that you were able to give it to yourself. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out last week's Sunday Night Live. This week, we are going to talk a little bit about how to thrive in change by identifying some of the places where we've been making bogus excuses. So a few months ago, I volunteered to watch my granddaughter. Her name is Bria. She is delightful. She was almost 3 years old, and I watched her for 5 days. Hi, Joanne. I'm glad you're here. So Bria and I were hanging out doing grandma time for 5 days while her parents were out of town. They went to Las Vegas to celebrate their anniversary. And it was a wild ride. We had so much fun, and I'm not accustomed to having an almost 3-year-old around the house. So it was pretty exciting. And at the end of the 5 days, when her parents were just getting ready to come and pick her up, James, I'm so glad you're here. Bria's mom and dad were getting ready to pick her up, and I looked in the mirror and realized that I had not taken a shower in 5 days. I had been so busy chasing a toddler that I had not taken a shower for 5 days. It's like, holy cow. I'd brushed my teeth, I'd combed my hair, but I had not jumped in the shower. And I was totally blown away. And it's like, you know what? Watching toddlers is taxing. That's hard work. And I gave myself a pass for not taking that shower, right? Because I was busy. So keep that thought. So now I'm going to share with you a little bit about a company. It's a very large company, and it's one that if I named it, you would know it. No matter where you are in the country, you would know this company. And I was working with them, and the senior leadership knew that they had some pretty significant issues. And so here are a few of the issues they knew they had. They knew that their operations were very complicated because they were piecemealed across several buildings in several different cities. And it started out as one operation, but as the demand grew, they just kind of would get stop gaps all over the place. Hi, Nina. Thanks for jumping in. So this company had operations that had started in one location, but had just been kind of sporadically piecemealed across a geographical area. So they knew that operations were complicated. They knew that the communication among their managers was a lot of times poor because it was difficult to stay connected when all those operations were in different geographic locations, right? And some of them were partners. Some of them had to do handoffs in a timely fashion, so they had to coordinate trucking and logistics. And a lot of times that wasn't happening because communications were poor because they were spread out so much. And they also knew that employee productivity was down because of all the time that was wasted going from one building to the next. When the day's work was done in one area, often there was still work that needed to be done and they needed those employees, but they'd have to drive to another location. And yeah, that was killing productivity. But fortunately for this company, they had some hope on the horizon. And this is where I became involved. And the hope was this. They were preparing to consolidate their 2 really large plants, 3 of their smaller plants, and 2 separate administration buildings, all under one roof in one big, beautiful building where everybody was going to come together and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, right? It was going to be one big happy family, everybody under the same roof again. And woohoo! There was a celebration. And so we began the process of communicating those things with the public, with the employees, and coming up with some strategies. Hi, Giselle, I'm glad you're here. So we started planning, how is this going to look? And really taking a deep dive, how are we going to fix this up? Oh, I love all those hearts. Mwah! How are we going to navigate this big change? And so we did the best we could. I took the information that they had, and we strategized some plans, and how are we going to make sure that operations are smooth. And they had a bunch of teams, and it was a huge project. There were 1,500 people involved, so it was a big deal. And then moving day came, and things didn't get better. I mean, they got a little better, but they didn't get totally better. And so they had to take a strong look. What is going on? The successes that they thought were magically going to show up when they solved those problems didn't appear. What was going on? And so we worked together to kind of assess, did some interviews, asked some questions, started making some observations, and this is what we saw. First of all, they thought that operations were really complicated because there were so many buildings. And that was a piece of it, but it turned out operations were actually complicated because people weren't following the process. They weren't following the old process with all the buildings. And so when they got to the new place, where it should have been easier, they weren't following the new process either. The excuse that we have too many buildings wasn't really the problem, but the change shone a light on it. See what I'm saying? All right, this one, they assumed that the managers weren't communicating because they were so far flung and it was difficult to contact each other with all these handouts and the trucking schedules, and it was also complicated. But it turned out that when all of those managers were under one roof, they still didn't communicate well. And this is why. They didn't communicate well because they stopped communicating, not because they were in different buildings, but because they didn't like each other. There were personnel issues. There were personal issues among their peers. And they thought, leadership thought going in, that solving the problem of the geography was going to fix everything. But it turned out it made communication worse. Why? Because the real reason, the excuse of the buildings was not the real reason. The real reason was because they did not connect together. They did not work as a team, and they didn't communicate. It had nothing to do with the separate buildings. But for years, leadership had turned the other way, thinking we can't fix that because we can't consolidate those buildings yet. And so they missed an opportunity to actually have a positive impact because they believed the excuse. But the big change shone a light on it. Hi, Debbie. I'm glad you're here. So, that was another one of the excuses that the big change exposed. Now, how about this one? They thought employee productivity was down because of all the time that was spent moving back and forth. But when they made the move and employees didn't have to move between buildings anymore, they realized that, yeah, that was a drain on productivity, but they hadn't noticed just how much abuse was happening in the system when it came to moving from one area to the next, taking twice as long as it needed to take, extending breaks, extending lunches, all of those things that when an operation is trying to be tight and be efficient are a drain on the productivity. But they didn't realize it was happening because they believed the excuse. So are you with me so far? Have you ever been in a company where you saw, oh my gosh, we thought this was the problem, but it turns out it's actually this. The reason people aren't in the break room isn't because the coffee stinks. They're not in there because, the place is too small, the lights are too dim, and it's not a pleasant place to be. We sometimes accept the face value excuse, and it's not really the excuse. And this is one of the great things about change. Hi, Veronica, I'm glad you're here. And Jackie, too. So glad you jumped in. So we're talking about change and how until a change happens, sometimes we just believe an excuse and accept it as truth and status quo. And we don't ever dig deep enough to see, wait a second, is that really the reason? Or is there something I could do to impact that situation a little better? So let's take this to a personal level. So I thought for years that I didn't work out and I didn't exercise because I was too busy working. I had a full-time job. I was raising a family. I was working 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day. I had a total of 3-hour commute, and that was killer. It was killer. Had a 3-hour commute. And so I looked at that and I said to myself, you know what? I don't work out. I can't work out. I don't have time to work out. And I accepted that excuse. And then the kids grew up and they moved out. And my work schedule became much more flexible. And my commute shrunk to almost nothing because we moved, and it was so much quicker, so much less of my day spent on the freeway, trafficking back and forth. And yet, I still didn't work out. So all those years that I told myself it was because I didn't have time, that wasn't really the reason. And it took a change to show me that I was mistaken, that I needed to reassess why I wasn't doing what I said I was going to do. And when I spent some time with myself, asked myself some questions, I recognized some flawed beliefs, some bogus stories that I'd been telling myself about what moving meant and what exercising meant and what working out was supposed to look like. And I'd pictured Jane Fonda, and I'm not Jane Fonda. So it took a change for me to understand that I had been believing a bogus excuse. And so I want to ask you what you wish you were doing. What do you tell yourself? Yeah, I'd be pursuing that promotion. I would be doing that. Oh my gosh, but I don't have time. Or nobody wants me. I'm middle-aged. What bogus excuse are you leaning on that if it were gone, you'd get to the truth? So this is how you can address those bogus excuses, and you can do it before the change happens. So if you're making excuses for the things you want in your life, I'm not pursuing my dream because I'm going to let my husband pursue her dream or his dream, or I'm going to let my wife pursue her dream, or I'm not moving because it's just a bad market, even though your neighborhood is declining, or you need to be closer. The excuses we make. What is it that you wish you could do, but you can't? Take a look at that. Write it down if you want. This is what I wish I could do, but I can't. I wish I could be a nurse, but I can't because. And take a look at that can't take a look at that excuse and spend a little time with it. Ask yourself, what if that isn't the reason? What else could it be? What if the reason that I'm not pursuing that promotion isn't because I'm convinced that they don't want a middle-aged woman to fill that role? What if I'm not pursuing that promotion because I'm afraid if I do, I might fail? Where are the excuses in your life that you can pinpoint before the change occurs and then respond? Say, okay, maybe, what if that's not the reason? Could it be this? Maybe it's because I am fill in the blank. And once you get to that truth, now you get to make a much more informed decision. You're not just allowing 20 years go by and you've never even taken a walk at the local park because you don't have time. You realize, oh, it's because I've been telling myself that if I'm going to be active, I have to do it to an exercise video in my living room. Whatever that bogus excuse is, you can expose it before the change happens if you want to. So take a look. Where are you making excuses? Ask yourself, what if that's not the real reason? What else could it be? And sometimes you can ask a friend to help you with that, or a coach if you have one. You can seek out the truth of why you're not taking action. So let me go back to my Bria story, because I blamed poor Bria for me not taking a shower for 5 days. Until it happened again when Bria wasn't here. Now, trust me, I really don't smell bad. And time tends to get away from me. I've always been like this. It's like, days go. And my routine got disrupted. And the reason that I wasn't taking a shower like I used to take one every day was not because I had a toddler. It's because I don't love taking showers. And that's the truth. It ain't pretty, but it's pretty real. I don't love taking showers. I blamed Bria, my poor 3-year-old delightful angel toddler grandbaby. I blamed her. It wasn't her, it's me. I don't love it. And when it happened again and Bria wasn't here, I realized, oh my gosh, I need to take a look at my system here because it's broken. I don't have the same work routine that I used to have that kind of forced me to. I knew what I was going to do every day of the week. It was solid. So yeah, I'm just clockwork, going to do what I got to do. But when that routine went away, everything else that went along with it got lost in the shuffle. So we can blame one thing for our excuse for why we're not doing what we're supposed to do. But it would behoove us to take a look and see, is it really the reason? Because it wasn't just Bria. It wasn't that I was distracted. It's because I didn't like my new process. I didn't like showers. So guess what? I take baths. So nobody has to worry. I changed it up. I'm out there, personal grooming, high on my list again. I'm just doing it a little differently. But it would have been a mistake to pretend that everything was going to get fixed after Bria went home, because truth was, it wasn't. So we've talked a little bit about change in a company and how it can expose false beliefs, excuses that we were making for not being efficient or not treating customers right. We talked about how those excuses can get exposed when we make a change that we just assumed was going to fix it. A lot of times we have employees perhaps that do not treat customers well, and we blame a million things for it. Oh, it's bad weather, or oh, we have to take employees by seniority. We don't get to pick them based on who's most qualified, so we just have to put up with it. Not true. Push comes to shove, we're going to find out when we fix those things if our problem isn't fixed. That's where our excuse was. Let me see. Emma has something good to say here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's see, Emma, see if I can see more of your... Oh, yeah. Emma says it's true. She feels uneasy and still does to some degree since she's taken a step in change. Yeah, change is not easy. And it exposes some of the assumptions that we've made about ourselves, doesn't it? That we thought we were okay, and when the big change happens, we're not okay. Um, uh, I know somebody who had, for years, made excuses that she did not have a close relationship with her mom because her mom lived so far away. And that worked for years because mom was way out there. So there was it made perfect sense. The reason we're not close is because mom's so far away until mom moves back into the same city. And the relationship is still not there. And so 20 years, 30 years of blaming distance for a lack of a relationship. But when the change happened, it exposed the truth. It wasn't the distance, it's the people. There's something else we have to look at. So this is the second piece of advice. If you are exposed, or if your excuses get exposed in the midst of a change, first of all, you can try to anticipate that. Like we talked about, fill in the blank. I'm not doing this because of this. And then look at that because and say, is that really true? And then the second thing you can do is just be aware that no matter what change you go through, there is potential for truth to pop out during that change. Something that you've assumed for a long time, and all of a sudden you see it show up. Holy cow, our managers weren't communicating because they hate each other's guts? It's not because they were so far apart in geography? Who knew? Sometimes it doesn't show up until you're right in the middle of it. Just know, surprises are going to happen. Welcome them. That is great information. Don't kick yourself because you didn't know it ahead of time. We do the best we can with what we've got. We try to anticipate, but change is unsettling and makes us uneasy for a reason. Isn't that the truth, Emma? So don't be surprised if truth pops out during a big change. Somebody passes away. You have a big change in your job. Maybe all of your kids leave the house and you realize, I thought that my marriage, we didn't talk a whole lot because we were so busy with the kids, but they're gone and we're still not talking. Welcome that information. Welcome that information. The truth that change exposes, and commit to looking at that real reason and doing something about it. It is a gift. I want to tell you, truth is always a gift. It's always a gift. Truth is always a gift. So if a big change or even a little change starts to shine the light on some truth of what's really happening in your head or in your heart or in your home or in your job, when the truth shows up, welcome it with open arms, consider it, be grateful for it, and then take some action to make sure that it's not wasted. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. I hope it does. And Carol, I'm so glad you're here. So glad you popped on. We're just wrapping up talking about how changes in our lives can expose the excuses that we've been making. It's happened to all of us, and sometimes those excuses are things that we cling to. They're kind of like a safety raft. I don't know if any of you have had the same reaction as I have had. But for some reason, around the middle of April, let's say, April 5th or April 6th, right about when the rubber's got to hit the road for getting those taxes done, I just get gripped. Thank you, Carol. I'm glad you love the advice. I just get gripped with this sudden compulsion to clean my closets because I don't want to do my taxes, right? So sometimes we cling to that excuse even when we know it's an excuse. How many of you have done that? All of a sudden you're on a mad hair. You've got to clean your house. You've got to go file all that paperwork. You've got to make that, 2-hour errand to go get Phillips head screws for the light switch covers that have been off for months. We all do it. Excuses can be our life raft. And sometimes we know that we're doing it. And that's a topic for another day. But a lot of times we don't know when we're clinging to those excuses. And that's where change can really help us to see what's really going on. It turns a whole different light on what's happening. So I hope that you have enjoyed it. Ooh, Carol's working on her taxes. Carol, you go. I've got to pull some stuff together for ours. My husband has some stuff that he's already got. I need to pull together the rest, and we need to get that out there. You'd think every year, it's the same thing, and every year I've got another reason. I just actually today, and I'll confess, I just today looked in our closet. We have a walk-in closet in our bedroom, and I thought to myself, I have got to get to that walk-in closet this week. Mind you, it has been disorganized for about a year and a half. And then I walked past the dining room where there is a pile of old Christmas stuff that has to be sorted and either donated to charity or put in boxes and stored that I have been ignoring since December 26th. We all do it. We make excuses. As long as we know we're doing it, it's not so dangerous. It's when we don't know that it can become a problem. So I hope this has helped you. I'm Shannon, and I'm alive and loving it. I didn't say that at the beginning. My goal is to help you to thrive and change, the change you love and the change that you didn't invite. I want you to know that your roots can be nourished even if your flowers aren't flourishing. Change is a wonderful opportunity to look at the truth of the excuses we've been making and make the adjustments that we need to make. Beth, it is good to see you. I'm just getting ready to sign off, so feel free to watch the recording because it'll be posted soon. Take care, everybody. Whichever football team you're rooting for, I hope you win. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. And goodbye, Chuck. I'm just signing off, but I'm so glad you popped in. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Bye.